If your boiler stops working, there may be some very simple checks that you can make to get it working again. Please note that if your boiler displays the ideologic name, you must contact Unipol and not perform any operations yourself. If your boiler has a small aperture on the front, you should be able to see a flame through this whilst your boiler is operating. If this is not the case, you can try resetting the boiler by turning the selector switch to off for a few seconds and then back to the desired setting. Your boiler manual should indicate how to relight the boiler if needed. Secondly, check whether the boiler is turned to the correct setting. The controls will need to be on the tap and wavy line symbol for heating and hot water. For just hot water and no heating, this is usually shown as a tap symbol. The boiler may also be set to the timer. This is changed by a selector switch on the timer face labelled 0 for off, timer symbol for timer, and 1 for override that's permanently on. It is recommended that you contact the Unipol housing management team for information on how to set the timer. If your property has a thermostat, you will need to check that this is set at a temperature above the current room temperature for the boiler to fire up. The ideal room temperature of a property is between 18 and 21 degrees. This thermostat is usually located in the entrance area or main living room on a wall. You should check the boiler pressure by viewing the dial on the boiler panel, which reads between 0 and 4. On some boilers, there may be an error code of 4 flashing. If the boiler is reading less than 1, this means that the system is low on pressure and you will need to take steps to repressurize the boiler. Some boilers have 2 filling taps connected to the filling loop. The first tap is shown now. If your boiler has this, open it up fully by turning anti-clockwise. Don't worry if your boiler has only the 1 tap, just skip to the next instruction. Don't turn any taps that are not connected to either end of the filling loop. To repressurize the boiler, you will need to turn the inlet tap anti-clockwise. It is a black lever or a knob labelled inlet valve. This will need to be done very slowly so that you can control the flow of water entering the system and not exceed the required level. You will hear water entering the boiler and the pressure gauge needle will move. When the needle is slightly above 1, turn the inlet tap off by turning it clockwise. If the radiators don't get very warm, you will need to bleed them. Insert a radiator key into the bleed valve as indicated and turn anti-clockwise. Protect the wall from dirty water with a tissue or cloth. You should keep the valve open, releasing air until water comes out. It should then be closed quickly by turning it clockwise. If the pressure gauge on the boiler then falls below 1, you will need to repressurize again. To test whether this has worked, turn on a hot water tap. You should hear the boiler fire up and the water will become hot. Occasionally, you will need to restart the boiler after refilling. To do this, turn the boiler controls to off and then on again to the tap and wavy line position. Try turning on the hot water again to check if the boiler now fires up. If this does not work, call the housing management team at Unipol.